breaking news alert.
This is a fast news super alert.
I love it.
Big changes at Ruby Central. Executive director, PR agency, CFO, and several contractors have parted ways with Ruby Central. I didn't read through the entire thing. I kind of skimmed it because it was late last night when I saw it. But yeah, what do you guys think? It felt like somebody on Reddit, I think, said the same thing. It felt like the first thing that wasn't like PR written. It was like written by human beings, finally,
Right.
like regular old human communication for once, which I thought was refreshing.
I'd agree with that sentiment. Yeah, this is the first thing that didn't feel like it was written by committee.
Yeah.
I mean, they talk about several interesting things in this article, which we will go into, I'm sure. But the one point, like very at the top, that Ruby Central has found itself in real financial jeopardy. I mean, it feels like that's been the case for a while.
Since RailsConf last year, at least.
I don't know all the details, but COVID happened. That made it really bad. Then I don't know if they recovered a fair bit in between, but then between RailsConf and the drama in September, and then sort of like this year, the RubyConf stuff is seemingly higher ticket price. Like the supporter tickets are $2,000. I don't think there have been tickets that expensive in the past. And the VIP ticket was like $2,500 because there was a gala and other things that didn't seem to particularly appeal to.
On that topic, it's something that they didn't really include in the email. The gala is no longer happening. It's been canceled. I don't know why they didn't include that in the email here, or if they're planning a follow-up to talk about how this impacts RubyConf. But the gala is no longer happening. It's been fully canceled.
You may have told me too, like there's a job fair thing that
Shan was trying to do a lot of things for the first time in this community and just like shotgun against the wall, see what sticks type of mentality, I guess. Because yeah, she had the gala, she had like a big career fair thing that she was trying to do to get like businesses local to the venue of where the conference was happening to kind of come in and involve the actual like geographically local community in the career fair type of thing. And apparently there was like zero interest, partially because, state of the world and economy and everything like that. So yeah, so there was a decent amount of space that was set aside for that is not going to get used for that anymore.
Yeah.
Did you have any concept of how many tickets were sold for the gala?
Yes. It was only like 4 or 5.
Yeah. Last one was 8 days ago, 23 days ago, 2 months ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Looks like 5. I don't know if you could buy a ticket and it doesn't show up if you wanted to hide it, but one of them's anonymous. There's like 6 tickets, it looks like.
There were not many tickets that were purchased for that.
That started immediately at RailsConf last year with the silent auction and stuff, where it was like vacations and other kind of very random things that weren't Ruby or programming related at all. And it felt strange to me that was like, yeah, sure, you might throw some money at it just to hopefully get like a cheap vacation out of it. But it wasn't something that was like going to support Ruby Central enough financially. This isn't just a general nonprofit. This is a nonprofit very specifically for programmers, and felt like the direction that Ruby Central was going under Shan's direction was have a Met Gala and other fancy things and whatever, but it was not in touch with what the community was looking for. And their concerns are around, the operations of Ruby Gems and whatever, but didn't seem like she was particularly involved in any of those types of things, more about the prestige and making Ruby Central a fancy thing or whatever. And it's like, that's fine, I guess, but it didn't feel like it fit here at all. You just maybe need to be in a different nonprofit or whatever.
Yeah. There was a point a little over a month ago, I think, where I had a call with Shan and a couple other people and was expressing basically that concern that like it feels like you're trying to gear this gala towards the general Ruby dev, but looking at the ticket price for the gala, that is way too expensive for an average Ruby dev who is going to the conference to also chip in for. And then on top of that, there was a lot of talk about doing that silent auction thing again throughout the gala to try and pump for more money. Is like, they already paid to get in for this event and you're going to keep trying to pump them for more money. The average Ruby dev going to the conference isn't the primary audience for this gala. Maybe there is like a subsection or a very small group that is, or like the uber successful people, but like the average Ruby dev isn't it. And I felt like they had heard what I was saying. And then like the next day, there was an email that was sent out with a like, a la carte, choose your Ruby experience. You know, you could do this activity, you could do the gala. And it's just like, you guys are doing exactly the thing I said you shouldn't do. I mean, you're just trying to get Ruby devs to go to this gala and it is not geared for them doing it.
And from my perspective, it's like, I see Ruby Central's conferences as typically work expenses. Like people will absolutely pay for their own way to go if companies won't support it. But like, how are you going to convince a company to send you to the gala and have them cover that ticket? No way. So this would all be like personal contributions or whatever. And it just didn't align. So it's interesting that finally changed. And who's on the board right now? We've got
Rand, Jay, Freedom, Brandon Weaver.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the board is going to be running things going forward. Like they're actually going to be doing the work, the sort of day-to-day stuff, I guess.
David Knowles is the fifth one.
Oh, yeah.
I tried not to crap on the gala in public because I was like, number one, I want it to be successful if he's working on it. And number two, I was like, I know Ruby Central needs the money. But at the same time, in private, I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And you would not catch me dead there because I was like, this sounds awful. Like I have to wear a suit. Heck no.
I do want to see you in a suit at the next conference, though.
Nah.
It could be a tuxedo t-shirt.
Yeah, I got on a call with Jason the other day with no shirt on. Like, I did not get in this business to wear a tie. Like, hell no. And whoever called it adult prom, like, that was not a selling point.
It was just like a little tone deaf for the audience. And
speaking of tone deaf, I don't know, reading through this whole announcement, it feels like they're still kind of ignoring a lot of the sources of the problem. I think, Chris, like the tweet that you posted in Discord about this shortly after, I think from Sam Stevenson, about how choosing to involve DHH in RailsConf with DHH's stance on various things. And like, you know, we've talked several times about how like Rails wouldn't exist without DHH. These conferences probably wouldn't exist without DHH. So it made sense from a logistical standpoint for the people running the conference to invite him to be part of the last RailsConf. At the same time, there is this kind of sense that the community's values and DHH's values have diverged significantly. And Ruby Central seems to constantly be tone deaf to that fact. And that if they actually are supposed to represent the community, to really regain some trust with the community, Ruby Central needs to come up with some kind of like, these are our values statement. This is what we build towards. Otherwise, it feels too much like cancel culture. And I don't want to lean in that direction.
The way the communication happened around RailsConf was too little, too late. People didn't know until they've already sponsored. And if they wanted to change their mind, it was like too late. And that was all such a weird situation. And that was partly due to Shan's direction coming in and wanting to involve a PR team and whatever at the time. And that was what it was. And there's a weird thing where like at this point, you do have people that still are fine on either side. They either don't mind David or they can ignore his political takes or whatever, and they're fine with him and want to go attend and listen to what he has to say at RailsConf. Like the room had a lot of people in it, but there was also plenty of people who didn't want to go and went to the bar and had their own activity, you know, during his talk. And it's like, to represent the community as a whole, you have to sort of be welcoming to everybody regardless, because at a certain point, it's like, yeah, the community is more than just about this one person. I think if we're going to represent the community, we should just ignore David. If that is something controversial, then okay, we're just not going to get involved in that. And it was RailsConf. So of course it makes sense. The last one, if you want to go to RailsConf and you're using Rails, it's tied no matter what to David. So there's no way to get around that. So it's like, then just don't go or don't sponsor or don't whatever. But they needed to communicate that ahead of time way sooner. a lot of people from the community just pretending that like Ruby Central stood for anti-DHH, which is like, I don't know if that's true. They've never really publicly said that or anything. So
And
it's
I
like,
think that's
how do you know? Like you're just making up because Ruby Central hasn't had a clear set of values and guidelines and whatever. Then like
right.
anybody can prescribe them as what they want them to be. And now it's like, oh, they're evil because they invited DHH to RailsConf and then didn't tell anybody until it was too late and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, that is what it is. They need to figure out some values and set them down in stone. And, you know, they can choose whatever they want. But, you know, if you're claiming you're for the entire community, then singling out people is not good because then that's not really for the community. So on one hand, I don't agree. But on the other hand, it's like, you don't have to put him on a pedestal. Just treat him like everybody else. And if he's got things you don't agree with, you just don't interact with them or you ignore them or you don't spend time with them. Like you're doing that to plenty of other people, but he is on a pedestal for many people, which makes it, you know, harder to ignore and stuff. So I understand, but it's like, it's just tough when communities then are divided. Like, how do you get them back together? Is it ever going to come back? I don't know. And I don't know if Ruby Central can ever get back to a place where they're equal on all sort of sides. Like it's tough. Let me tell you a quick story about our sponsor, Honeybadger.io. One time, a customer of theirs had a background job run overnight that caused hundreds of thousands of errors to be reported to Honeybadger by mistake. Like many other error tracking and performance monitoring tools, Honeybadger bills for monthly usage, and so this customer's mistake was going to cost them a lot of extra money that month. If you've ever used a monitoring service, you might have experienced something like this yourself. Well, fortunately for this customer, they emailed Honeybadger's support and received the most amazing reply. Honeybadger was resetting their monthly quota and canceling the bill. This is just one example of how much the small team at Honeybadger cares about their users. Ask anyone you know and you'll hear similar stories. Go check them out at honeybadger.io. It's free to get started and setup takes less than 5 minutes. Don't forget to bookmark it. That's www.honeybadger.io.
It's a no-win situation from my perspective. Yeah. Like if Ruby Central came out and said like, we are not with DHH, blah, 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 then you're alienating 50% of the people who agree with him, right? And if they come out the other way, you're alienating the other 50%. Either way, you're going to, it's a no-win situation. All you have is a loss here because the people who are very vocally like against DHH, it's a small minority. Like it's like the fringe of like the...
It's a small but very vocal minority.
Yes. And the same, on the other hand, this exact same way, there are people who support David and they're very, very out and proud about it. And it's just like politics too. Like there's no winning here. Like people are always going to be upset. I think them taking a stance is probably going to just hurt them even worse.
That's hard to imagine at this point, if Ruby Central being hurt worse than they've already done by themselves.
Well, let's say that they've got a sponsor and the sponsor, like CEO, like really likes DHH, right? So then if Ruby Central comes out and like, hey, this isn't how we feel, that's when it's like, all right, well, screw y'all, I'm pulling my money. Or all these individual back sponsors that they've been trying to get, like.
That is what the fallout has been over the last, 6 months or so.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right, David. It has already happened.
that is exactly what happened.
Yeah, I agree. It's like a lose-lose situation no matter what. And there's no good solutions to it. It's hard because it's like you got to address it in some way, but you can't take a stance on one side or the other, ideally.
Well, you can't take a stance about individuals.
You're right.
But what you can do is better define the values that the organization prizes and values and wants to build towards for the community, which I don't think Ruby Central has or has ever had.
Do they not have a code of conduct? To me, that's kind of what that would kind of fall under. It's
not quite the same as a set of values, I think, but
I know they've had the code of conduct for conferences and stuff like that. And it's in that same vein of like, treat everyone else how you would want to be treated. If someone's going out of line, that's still got to be well defined, because just because somebody has a different opinion than you do doesn't mean you have to kick them out of the conference. That doesn't make any sense. But if someone was harassing someone else, sure. That's what we were saying at RailsConf. Look, if David's harassing people at RailsConf, we will kick DHH out of the conference. But like the same thing applies to everyone there. But if you have different viewpoints, that's fine. But that's not a good enough reason to single somebody out and kick them out of a conference or the community or whatever. It's easier when it's a conference. It's like a set number of days and situations in person and things like that. But, you know, when you're sitting at home writing your personal blog on the internet, putting out opinions, that's a whole different story. That's just how the world works, and people can publish things and say things and you can disagree with them. And there's not quite the same constraints there or whatever that are enforceable or whatever. Like, it's just very different. But I would like to see them take some time to set some values. Like, this is who we are, what we're doing, what we're contributing to the ecosystem. I feel like, you know, the announcement was talking about some new things. What was the AI thing?
Project Dream. It's driving Ruby's evolution to AI maturity.
I struggle with this kind of stuff because I'm like, you know what we are concerned about? You having the funding to maintain Ruby gems. If that's totally under control, then sure, you can fiddle with some new ideas and other projects and things. But like, huge amount of the team just left, and I don't really have confidence in the state of the world there. Maybe they're fine or whatever, but like, can we focus on that? Make sure that that's strong and Ruby Gems is going to be successful in the long term. And we were talking in the past about like, what happens if we start getting a split where people are uploading gems to an alternative, and then you just start seeing a fracturing of the ecosystem of these various repositories and all of that, where Devise comes from one repository, your Rails gem comes from another one, and now you got to just have this mess of separate things. Part of the benefit of being centralized, it makes it simple. So if we can keep that simplicity going and keep that stuff maintained, that seems like step one to sort of get back to where we should be, so that we know that like, yes, Ruby Gems is covered. Or should they even do conferences in the future? I don't know. Maybe not. It's kind of, from my understanding, it was like the conferences are very separate from the day-to-day maintenance work and whatever. And they're different people doing all of that. Hopefully it's profitable enough to fund Ruby Gems, but it didn't seem like it necessarily was. And the financial situation of like booking out venues years in advance and then, you know, having zero refundable things or whatever, like, it's such high cost and high risk to do the conferences. And if they're not providing substantial money to maintaining Ruby Gems or whatever, then it's like, look at it differently and find a different model for sustaining Ruby Gems, and maybe just trim down what you're doing and focus. Because now it's like, we're going to plan to make Ruby and AI better. What does that mean? Are you going to work with Anthropic and Google and whatever? It seems like a very vague, confusing thing. And we want to see, like, if we're supporting you, where's my money going? You know, I'd love to see exactly donations and the budgets and seeing like, we need this many maintainers for Ruby Gems, this many security researchers, we need these people's salaries. This is our current budget, the predicted money coming in for the next year or months. We've got a deficit of this we need to make up. We need grants, this amount, company sponsors. Like, I have no idea any of that stuff. But if that was public, then I feel like I would have a much stronger level of confidence to like either get involved or contribute or whatever, and just know that it's a nonprofit and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So hopefully that goes that direction. But it just felt so opaque in the past that I have no idea what the hell is going on. And you're worried about money, but you won't tell us what the struggles are or anything other than, we really would love more of your money.
Are you tired of babysitting your job queues? Let us do it for you. JudoScale monitors and autoscales your job queues so you can stop babysitting and get back to coding. We support Sidekick, SolidQ, GoodJob, and just about every other job backend in Rubyland. And of course, we autoscale your web services too. JudoScale scales up your apps faster than any other autoscaler, so request timeouts and backed up job queues are mitigated before they become a problem. JudoScale has a free plan you can use forever, so there's literally no risk, whether you're on Heroku, AWS, Render, or any other cloud platform. Visit judoscale.com and get your job queues under control.
I don't know if I'll get in trouble or called out for saying this, but on the call where I was told that the gala was getting canceled because of all of this stuff, it was said that Ruby Central was basically 30 days away from bankrupting itself because of what the current spend rate was. And so that led to a lot of these changes to minimize the spend rate, to give them the runway to get to where certain donations were going to come in.
Which is
the fact that it got down to 30 days without other decisions being made, without communication going out about what was going on, that feels really bad.
And that's to remind people that are listening to this later on, that's 30 days is before RubyConf happens.
Right.
So they could go insolvent, and then like, what happens to RubyConf? Like, are people going to just show up and then like, oh yeah, there is no conference anymore? That's crazy. If they only had 30 days left, what the fuck is going on internally that they didn't know ahead of time? That it was like, we got 90 days left and 60 days left and 30 days left. And only at the 30-day mark did they realize like, we should probably pull the plug. This is bad. It doesn't seem like it was being well run internally. And like the CFO left, and maybe this is a big part of that, is like, as the CFO of a nonprofit, I would expect you to always know exactly how much runway we have and keep the entire team up to date on that literally every week or something. Because especially with a conference coming up that is probably what, $500,000 or more or something, like huge numbers. That is something that like you're getting sponsorships sold. Hopefully money's coming in for deposits for that. You probably got to be putting
tickets
money
are being
down
purchased. People are, buying flights and making hotel reservations.
Yeah. Like site visits, like doing catering contracts and whatever. And it's like, they should have constantly been very aware of that budget. So it surprises me that it got down to 30 days and they were like, oh, we need to make some changes. That seems awfully too late. That should have been at 90 days or something even. It seems a little wild, and maybe it's better late than never, but it also could still be too late. I don't know. This is a drastic time to make changes. And if that's the case, it further reinforces my thoughts of like, why the hell are we talking about AI and making AI tools? We have 30 days left. What are you talking about? Why are we even looking at the future? We need to fix what we've got now. Like the apprenticeship program thing here, building a structured apprenticeship program focused on developers for underrepresented groups. That's lovely. But if you can't stay operating and you don't have the budget to keep going for more than 30 days, how the heck are you going to do an apprenticeship program? And maybe that's like some of the sales pitch to get more donors or something. I don't know. But it sure doesn't feel like the urgency or whatever that it needs to have right now, if that's the case. Like, to me, if I look at it like running a business, that would freak me out. It's like, yeah, we can just shut down Ruby Central in 30 days unless we figure out some major things. And it's like, okay, if that's the case, shouldn't the community know about that so that we could choose to contribute? But this announcement, if it doesn't mention any of that, maybe they're confident enough that things will be fine given cuts internally or something. So maybe that's figured out, but we can't help if we don't know what the problems are.
That's a short-term solution. That doesn't like fix the long-running issues. And the long-running issues only get fixed if you communicate better to let people know what's going on. And like you said, a lot more transparency and where that money goes would really go a long way to seeing what exactly Ruby Central contributes to the ecosystem now.
This isn't a new conversation either, because when Jonah got on stage at RailsConf in Atlanta, I left that conference with like half my dev team, and every single one of us was like, that was weird. They're like, is Ruby Central having money problems? Like, why don't we know about that? Like, and when we first started bringing this up, it was like, where does this money go? Like, it would kind of nice to know where this money is going. So like, it's being brought back up now, but this has been an ongoing
and that
conversation.
was years ago.
Yeah, that was years ago. Like, this has been like an ongoing thing.
And that's sort of the thing too, over time. Like, RailsConf was massive years ago, and like it no longer exists. It's declined. it's over now. RubyConf was hopefully going to take its place. And it's like, who knows what size it's going to be. They've had the last year of negativity around Ruby Central that's like not really encouraging people to go to RubyConf.
On top of just general state of the world where there, a lot of international people don't feel safe traveling to the US right now because the world is on fire. Or even
if you're in the US, like budgets are really tight and prices are going up everywhere around the world. Like even if you live in the same city as the conference, it's like still is a lot of money to buy a ticket to go to the conference. And then hotels and flights and everything else on top of that adds up so fast. And that's some of the stuff that like, I don't see the reason to have a 3-day conference with the hack day and all that. Like, tighten it up, drop the prices, make it more accessible. I know the goal is like still raising funding for operating the nonprofit, but like you got to get with the times too. And if budgets are tight, then like, okay, maybe we do 2 conferences a year. We used to. Now we're only got one big RubyConf to gamble everything on. And even last year, it was like, no RubyConf, we're just going to do the last RailsConf. So there's one less opportunity for everybody to get together at a Ruby Central event rather than just straight up donate. I would rather get something out of my donation, which is like going to an event, having a great time with other people in the community that I miss. And this is like the only time I get to see them in person every year. I'm happy to do that, but it's also harder if you're just asking for donations, if they don't get anything out of it. There's no recognition, no swag, no event to go hang out at, whatever.
On top of having no idea how that money actually gets spent.
Right. Like, I really don't want to just throw away $50 a month as subscription because I know exactly what I can get out of my $50 a month if I spend it on meals for my family or whatever. At least I get something going to a conference that's work related too. And then the company can expense it. And it comes out of different budgets that way too. So there's so many little things that make it easy for me to give you money. And it's like, ideally, the companies are doing the contributions, not the individuals. And if you are going to need it from the individuals, they got to get something in return. You got to think of it more like a business, not like a nonprofit, I feel like. Just treat it like you're selling a product. And people will be willing to pay double so that there is margin for the nonprofit in that because they know it's going to a good cause, or ideally it's going to a good cause. We don't know where it's going. So what else was in this announcement?
The board is transitioning to more of a working volunteer board. So they're going to be more involved. They're setting up the steering committees. I think that was probably like the least touched on thing in the email that I think was the most interesting.
What are those exactly? I know that there's the Schneems is on the open source committee by himself or something.
Yeah, I think these are using the same word committee, but completely different. It's at
the very bottom. It just says help shape the direction of Ruby Central and contribute to the areas you care about most.
So there's that bit. They mentioned it earlier in the emails too then. Oh yeah, here it is. We're introducing steering committees led by our board members to bring more voices into how this work will happen. Then there's like 5 committees that they list off: open source and infrastructure, Ruby Alliance and funding, community, conferences and governance, apprenticeships and education, Dream and the future of Ruby. So it's like, this feels like an opportunity to maybe be involved and have our voices heard on some of these topics. But it's just kind of like, it'll be interesting to see if they communicate well about who comes into any of these steering committees, how these committees proceed or do anything. I don't know.
As basically an outsider, the only thing I've ever really done with Ruby Central was co-chair a conference. The education thing, I'm obviously a good person to be involved in that or whatever. And like, on one hand, they should probably do the reach outs to the community members that they want to see involved. And I will probably send them a message for that. But like, I would love to see for these meetings or whatever, like, would you record them and then publish them so that we could watch them in our free time or whatever, and then see what's going on? And I'm sure there's probably sections, financials, or well, I don't know, whatever, that like can't go public or something, but
that's probably like 10% meeting content, whereas the other 90%.
They could edit that and ship the rest of it and like just have like a YouTube channel or something with those regular updates. And like, they don't even need to put any work into writing up blog post about all of that. They probably already have meeting notes too for all of those. Heck, AI can do it for you anyways, but like just share all these things that are going on as much as possible and do the least amount of editing and work that to make them as minimal impact on the organization, because they're, I'm sure, running very lean,
but not zero
right now.
But
like
something.
Just publish anything, please. I'm glad the change is happening. Should have happened a long time ago, but it also still feels like not quite what we need to hear right now. Yeah, I don't know if Ruby Central will ever quite get back to where they were. But I also in the past, like I had no idea who the hell Ruby Central was or what they did. And communication was never great, even 10 years ago or whatever. It's like a lot of stuff was just kept quiet and it was like, okay, they organize these conferences. Oh, I had no idea they actually maintain Ruby gems too. I don't know these people that are doing these things. But like, I am confident now that like all of the directors are awesome people. And so I'm hoping that like the board takes it in the right direction. They're deeply involved in the community and stuff like that, which I feel like hasn't quite been the case over the years. And there was also a lot of churn of people working for Ruby Central or whatever. It's just changing hands a lot. So that I'm sure made it tough in the past. But like Freedom's been around on there for a long time since his debut at RailsConf Detroit. I think it's helpful to keep them on for as long as possible because then they can really make the impact.
That's kind of the two-edged sword. Like you want to keep them on as long as possible, but at the same time, you need to bring new people in so that people who are in there don't get completely burned out and then leave without being able to pass on any domain knowledge.
Hopefully that is like, the board can bring in people into the committees that could rotate, just like you have the conference program committees change every conference. Like if the board can do the higher level of like, let's direct people in the way we want to go, and then we can bring in people from the community into these committees and actually get them involved, that's great. I would hope that would not burn them out and stuff like that, or not go too deep in one direction because somebody's really strong interest in that is guiding everything in that one direction. But you really need enough voices from the community to balance out like, this is the general direction the community wants to go versus like this very loud person's voice gets all the attention because they are the one talking all the time publicly. And that's part of why Ruby Central can get such a negative rap is like everyone else is talking about them. They're not talking about their values and whatever else. And their reputation becomes what everybody else wants it to be. And they've really not done enough.
Honestly, we could close it off right there with that. I don't know if there's much more in this email we can really go into.
Part.
Yeah. I'm glad that they're doing this. Like, I think these are good changes for what it's worth. Like, we've been a little negative on here, but for what it's worth, like, we very much appreciate everyone who's working on this and who cares about this and who's volunteering.
Yeah. I think that's why.
If we didn't care, then we wouldn't be talking about this.
That's what we have a whole episode dedicated to this because we care.
Yes.
And it is those tough times where like, you got to be negative because that's what is happening. And that's how we figure out what are the positives we can pull out of this and directions to go. So it feels negative, but like we're talking about it because we sure as hell want Ruby gems to be in good hands and kept secure from the ridiculous amounts of like future security issues and AI slop and whatever else is going on there trying to, if somebody can get a hold of these libraries, like is happening in every other community, it is super detrimental. And like that stuff can end up killing Ruby. I mean, it's already slowly fading because now your AI LMs are able to generate JavaScript so easily and React code and whatever. It's like, there is a valid point in the Project Dream stuff to like, how do we create the documentation so that the LLMs can actually produce good Ruby code and things like that? But yeah, there's a lot of things going on all at once. A lot of change needs to happen. We look at what has happened. We didn't like that. Now we got to figure out what do we want and how should it go forward and stuff. And like people should absolutely reach out and get involved. Like, I don't know how much time I have to contribute, but like I'm probably going to reach out and see if I can help on education stuff or whatever. I may only have 5 hours a month or something, but if they could do something and I could contribute something useful with that time, then like might even go further than contributing $100 a month or whatever. Like the time is probably really valuable. Obviously the money's necessary to operate, but you know, if you're frustrated with all this, it's like, I get it, but we need to also help as best we can, even if it's little, or in our case, like use the podcast to talk about this stuff and frustrations and ideas of ways to improve it or whatever, because it just dies if all we do is complain.
Yeah. And that's,
we're screwed.
I guess, part of the reason I wanted to bring up the steering committee part of it was like, this is the opportunity. If you've had disagreements with Ruby Central on how or why it did things in the past, like this is the opportunity to step in and actually help guide where it goes in the future.
You know, I know some people express concern that like Shopify is just trying to take over Ruby gems or whatever. Like, okay, well, if that's your concern, you might want to get involved in keeping it independent if that's big enough of a concern for you. Otherwise, guess what? The only way it's going to be able to afford to be maintained is if some company is able to contribute the resources and talent and money and whatever to do that. And it'll be Shopify because they're the biggest Ruby shop out there with the budget for that. So it's a lot of like, yes, you have those concerns and maybe they're valid. And so maybe you should do something about it. We need your help. That's the whole point of this community. And that was like what I loved the most about Ruby when I came to it. It's like, we're all rallying behind like, I want to upgrade to the latest version of Ruby the day it comes out and I want to ship it in production or whatever. And I'm like, this is very different than my experience in Python. People were like, yeah, Python 3, screw that. And we're never going to use that and whatever. So I just like really appreciated the community. And then over time, you get more and more involved and you start to see the high school groups of the cliques of people and their different opinions and whatever. And it's like, that's fine. That's how humans work. But at the end of the day, we got to rally behind something bigger than us. I want everybody to appreciate how awesome Ruby is compared to other languages that have crazy syntax that's frustrating to read or whatever. Like those things that I find so enjoyable. I'd love to get other people to experience that, which is why this stuff matters. But who knows where all this will end. But maybe that's hopefully a better ending that's not negative. That like, well, we'll have to go to Andrew's Last Off Rails talk to hear this. But like his talk is about you are part of the community. No matter what you've done, even if you've just asked a question on Reddit or Stack Overflow, that matters.
I don't think I need to expand on it more. I think that perfectly encapsulates what it's about.
Spoil your talk.
You got to get something to bring him in, you know?
You just go up there like Justin Bieber and hit play on the podcast.
Hey, you guys know I have a podcast? Sorry. Here's my favorite clips. But I'm going to make sure to like not queue them up. I'm going to like go search them up each time.
And you play your Fox News snippet.
This is a Fox News nerd. Yeah, America.
Love South Park.
South Park is the best.
All right, gentlemen. Change is happening.
Yes, it is.
See you later.
Peace.
Ciao.